Guys,
What is it, son?
you're not gonna believe this.
Oh, no way.
Wow.
Is that a diamond?
The wind howled across the rugged coast of Nova Scotia, whipping cold Atlantic spray into the faces of the Oak Island crew. Out here, nothing comes easy. For over 2 centuries, treasure hunters have bled, toiled, and risked their lives chasing whispers of an unimaginable prize. Gold, relics, even sacred artifacts, buried deep beneath this cursed ground. Most have left with empty pockets, and some have never left at all. But today, something feels different. Beneath the grind of machinery and the chatter of the team, there's a tension in the air, a sharp electric charge, as if the island itself knows a secret it's about to reveal. Rick Lagina stands at the edge of the dig site, eyes fixed on the earth, the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. For years, he's heard the legends, a vault untouched since the 1700s, a treasure so valuable it could rewrite the past. And now, they might be closer than ever. A sudden shout cuts through the wind. Tools clatter, the digging halts. Buried just inches below the surface is something no one expected to find here. Not in this spot, not in this way. What follows is a chain of events so strange, so unbelievable, that cameras are ordered to stop rolling. And yet a few blurry images manage to slip out. If you think you've heard the Oak Island story before, think again. This isn't just about gold. This is about a discovery that could challenge everything we thought we knew about history itself. So stick with us, because what we're about to reveal will leave you questioning everything. And trust me, you'll want to be subscribed before the next chapter breaks. After weeks of digging under grey skies and battling the stubborn clay that guards Oak Island's secrets, the crew had begun to feel the familiar weight of frustration. The days blurred together, shovels striking rock, boots sinking into mud, and the wind carrying the salt of the Atlantic across the worksite. Each morning brought hope. Each evening ended with another empty hand. But on this particular morning, something shifted. The metal detectors began to hum with an unfamiliar pitch. Low, drawn out, and oddly insistent. The crew's ground-penetrating radar operator, kneeling over a patch of untouched earth in the island's northeast corner, frowned at his display. A jagged shape appeared, ghost-like, deep beneath the surface. Not the scattered dots of small debris they'd grown used to, but a single, massive shadow. Rick Lagina stood over the monitor, his eyes narrowing. The readings suggested metal, and a lot of it, but it was buried far deeper than most objects they'd ever recovered, far beyond the range of careless modern trash or rusted tools left by past diggers. Marty approached, his skepticism plain. It could be anything. Bedrock anomaly, false reading. We've seen them before. Rick didn't flinch. Or it could be exactly what we've been waiting for. The decision came swiftly. They would investigate, despite the extra cost, despite the uncertainty. A rig was called in to drill a test bore, each thud of the machinery echoing like a heartbeat through the clearing. Hours later, as the drill bit chewed its way toward the mysterious target, the ground beneath them seemed to answer with a faint, metallic ring, deep, deliberate, undeniable. The crew froze. No one spoke. Rick's gaze locked on the borehole. Something was waiting down there, and they had just woken it. The next morning, the crew returned to the site, under a sky heavy with low clouds. The air was still, thick with the kind of anticipation that made even casual conversations feel hushed. Excavation would have to begin cautiously. If the readings were right, they could be dealing with something fragile, something irreplaceable. Rick called for a smaller precision excavator rather than the heavy machinery they usually relied on. Inch by inch, the soil was removed, sifted, and inspected. Every bucketful was examined as if it might hold the answer to a centuries-old question. The ground here was different, tighter packed, darker in color, with an almost oily sheen that hinted it hadn't been disturbed in hundreds of years. Then came the first real sign. Just 3 feet down, the shovel hit something solid. It wasn't rock. The crew cleared around it with hand tools, revealing a slab of weathered wood, its surface waterlogged but intact. The grain bore the marks of hand cutting, the unmistakable signature of pre-industrial craftsmanship. Someone had shaped this, long before modern machines ever touched the island. A few feet deeper, another surprise emerged, a row of stones, fitted together with surprising precision. They weren't random. They formed what looked like part of a wall or boundary, deliberately placed and expertly arranged. "This isn't natural," Marty muttered, crouching to run his fingers over the smooth edges. And then, as the work continued, the discoveries began to pile up. A rusted iron spike, a smooth clay shard, unlike anything in Nova Scotia's colonial record, and a strange copper fitting, its green patina glowing faintly against the dirt. But it was what they found next that brought the site to a standstill. While brushing away damp soil, one of the crew uncovered a curled scrap of parchment, no larger than a man's palm. The edges were frayed, the surface faded, almost to nothing, but faint markings were still visible. Deliberate lines and symbols drawn by a careful hand. Theories flew instantly. Could it be from a ship's log, a medieval manuscript, or something far older, carried across the ocean and hidden here for reasons lost to time? Rick held it gently, knowing even the touch of air could cause it to crumble. If this fragment had survived centuries underground, what else could be waiting just a few feet deeper? By late afternoon, the steady rhythm of the dig was replaced by the kind of silence that only comes when the crew knows they've hit something extraordinary. The stonework they had been following curved downward, revealing itself not as a wall, but as the lining of a shaft. Perfectly fitted stones, layered and interlocked, descended into darkness. Whoever had built this had done so with remarkable skill, and for a very specific purpose. Rick leaned over the edge, peering into the narrow opening. The air rising from within was cool, stale, untouched for centuries. "This isn't just a hole," he said quietly. "It's a gateway." The team worked slowly, widening the opening enough to examine what lay below. At roughly 20 feet down, their lights caught the unmistakable shape of a barrier, a seamless slab of stone, wedged tight against the shaft walls. Unlike the weathered stones above, this one was smooth, almost polished, as if deliberately crafted to seal whatever lay beyond. It was locked tight, no gaps, no hinges, no sign of a door, just an unyielding surface that seemed to say, "You're not welcome here." As they began documenting the discovery, someone noticed something else. Faint markings etched into the upper stones. Not random scratches, but deliberate carvings, geometric shapes, intersecting lines, and small symbols that didn't match any modern alphabet. Marty crouched to get a closer look, running a flashlight over the patterns. These could be navigational, maybe a code, a cipher. Others speculated it might be a map, one that only made sense to the builders. The shapes were painstakingly copied into notebooks and photographed from every angle, in case time or weather eroded them before they could be studied. Even with the best tools on the island, Breaking through the barrier wouldn't be easy, and there was risk. If the shaft was part of a booby-trapped system, one wrong move could flood it, collapse it, or destroy whatever was inside. The crew stood around the opening, the fading daylight casting long shadows over the dig site. Beneath them, sealed behind centuries of stone and secrecy, was something deliberately hidden from the world. The question was no longer if they had found a vault. The question was, who built it, and what were they protecting? The decision to breach the barrier wasn't made lightly. For days, the crew studied the stone, tested the surrounding structure, and debated the safest approach. Each theory carried its own risk: structural collapse, flooding from hidden channels, or irreversible damage to whatever was sealed inside. But in the end, the lure of discovery proved stronger than caution. On a grey morning with the tide running high, the work began. A diamond-tipped drill was positioned at the center of the slab, its slow, deliberate bite into the stone echoing like a drumbeat in the shaft. Every crew member was on edge, watching for any shift in the stonework, any whisper of water. Hours passed before the first crack appeared, a thin, jagged line that spidered across the surface. Chisels followed, then pry bars, until at last, with a deep, echoing groan, the slab shifted. A gust of cool, stale air swept upward, carrying with it the scent of age and secrecy. Lights were lowered into the shaft, revealing a space beyond, a chamber. The first glimpse was enough to draw gasps: the faint gleam of metal, the edges of carved chests, and the unmistakable glint of gold. One by one, they descended, boots crunching softly against the untouched floor. The beam of Rick's flashlight swept over the scene. Wooden chests banded in rusted iron, gilded objects half buried in dust, and bundles wrapped in brittle, time-worn cloth. Every step felt like trespassing into another century. Among the first items carefully lifted into the light was a gold-plated cross, its surface etched with symbols no one could immediately identify. A spill of Spanish coins followed, their worn edges catching the glow. Some dated to the late 1500s, but it was the last find that silenced even the most talkative among them. A manuscript, bound in leather darkened by time, its pages filled with script in an unfamiliar hand. The ink, though faded, was still legible, and entirely unlike any language they'd seen before. Whatever story Oak Island had been hiding for centuries, it had just begun to speak. Word of the discovery spread quickly, but not in the explosive, headline-grabbing way one might expect. Officially, the team released only a brief statement. An unprecedented historical find has been made on Oak Island. Analysis is ongoing. Behind the scenes, however, the dig site became a controlled zone. Security tightened. Access was limited. The cameras, once welcome everywhere, were now kept at a distance. Within days, a group of specialists arrived: historians, cryptographers, and artifact preservation experts flown in from universities and private institutions. The manuscript, still cradled in its protective case, was the focus of every whispered conversation. Initial examination was startling. The paper, if it could be called that, wasn't European in composition. Its fibers and treatments suggested techniques more common in the Middle East during the medieval period. Even more shocking was the handwriting, ornate, deliberate, and filled with symbols that matched no known alphabet in modern archives. Carbon dating hinted at an age that predated the earliest known European settlements in Nova Scotia by over a century. Theories ignited. Some experts suggested a link to the Knights Templar, citing the cross and certain geometric symbols found on the shaft stones. Others believed it could be a pirate's hoard, treasure seized from Spanish galleons and smuggled to the New World under the cover of secrecy. A few even whispered about royal treasure, valuables spirited away from a collapsing European court, hidden across the ocean where no king's rival could find them. Yet for all the talk, not all findings were made public. Key pages of the manuscript were withheld, examined only by a select few. Certain artifacts, reportedly more valuable and more historically significant than anything shown on camera, vanished into secured storage with no explanation. Rick Lagina, when pressed by reporters, offered only a careful smile. Some stories, he said, aren't ready to be told, and so the island keeps its grip on the truth. For every answer found in that sealed chamber, a dozen new questions have taken its place. The treasure was real. The mystery is deeper. And somewhere beneath the windswept soil of Oak Island, the rest of the story still waits. The breach into the chamber was smaller than expected, just wide enough for one person at a time to slip through. The air inside was shockingly dry, the kind of stillness that spoke of centuries untouched by wind or water. Every sound, every footstep, every breath seemed to echo off the stone walls. The beam of Rick's flashlight swept across the cramped space, and there it was, the vault room. 3 chests sat in a neat row along the far wall, their iron bands mottled with rust but still intact. Beside them, several gilded candlesticks leaned against a crate, their gold leaf catching the light like trapped sunlight. But the most striking object was at the center, a carved wooden reliquary, its surface darkened with age, the delicate engravings still sharp despite the centuries. The crew worked in near silence, documenting every detail before touching a thing. Each chest was different, one bearing a crude crest, another wrapped in corroded chain, and the third, smallest of all, sealed with a heavy wax that had hardened like stone. While inspecting a pile of loose debris in the corner, one of the team uncovered something unusual, a metal cylinder, no longer than a forearm, capped tightly at both ends. The surface was etched with faint markings, perhaps letters, perhaps symbols, worn nearly smooth by time. With gloved hands, Marty eased the cap free. Inside was a folded sheet of parchment, brittle but astonishingly preserved. Even before it was unfolded, the ink bled faint traces of intricate script and geometric drawings. The discovery sent a murmur through the group, a manuscript hidden inside a sealed metal tube. A message meant to survive the centuries. But survive for who? And why here, in this hidden vault beneath Oak Island? They didn't know it yet, but the answer to that question would pull them deeper into a mystery that no amount of gold could ever fully explain. Under strict security, the relics and the sealed manuscript were transferred to a climate-controlled lab. The atmosphere there was as tense as it had been in the vault room, the difference being that now the danger was not collapse or flooding, but the fragile nature of the centuries-old materials. Specialists worked under magnifying lamps, their gloved hands moving with surgical precision. The manuscript, once carefully unfolded, revealed a stunning complexity. Lines of Latin script ran alongside strange symbols that matched no known written language. Some were geometric, interlocking circles, crosses, and spirals, while others resembled stylized animals or celestial bodies. Linguists immediately recognized the Latin as formal and ecclesiastical, the kind used in medieval religious orders. But the cipher running between the lines, that was something else entirely. It was as if the Latin text were only the surface, and the true message lay hidden in the strange symbols woven through it. Days turned into nights as the code breakers worked, tracing each character, comparing them to medieval archives and cryptographic records. Then came the breakthrough. Several of the symbols matched rare insignia from a little-known military order of knights active in the early 1300s, a group believed to have splintered off from the more famous Knights Templar after their suppression by the French crown. Historical records suggested this lost order vanished from Europe without explanation. Now, in the lab, under the sterile glow of modern lights, there was tangible proof they had crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus. The implications were staggering. If the manuscript was authentic, it meant a secret European expedition had reached Nova Scotia long before official history records. And if those knights brought treasures with them, then the vault was only part of the story. But as experts delved deeper into the manuscript's meaning, certain pages were quietly removed from the translation work, examined behind closed doors. No explanation was offered, and just like that, the most explosive details were no longer in the public eye, locked away, just as the island's secrets had been for over 700 years. As the team catalogued the last of the vault's treasures, Rick's flashlight caught something strange on the far wall, a shadow that didn't match the solid stone. Moving closer, he ran his hand over the surface. Beneath centuries of grime, a perfect curve began to emerge, a narrow stone archway, barely wide enough for a man to pass through. The crew worked carefully, clearing away rubble and hardened earth until the opening stood revealed in full. Beyond it, a tunnel stretched away into pure blackness, the walls built of the same precise, fitted stone as the shaft above. This was no natural cave. It had been engineered, hidden behind the vault, as if guarding a second, deeper secret. Rick crouched at the threshold, feeling a faint breath of air on his face. It wasn't stale like the vault. It was cool, fresh, alive. Somewhere in that darkness, air was moving, which meant the tunnel connected to a larger space beyond. Theories sparked instantly. Was this an escape route for whoever built the chamber? A passage to another vault? Or perhaps a link to an even older structure buried beneath the island? Marty shone his light inside, but the beam dissolved into the black after just a few feet. "We'll need proper gear before anyone sets foot in there," he said, his voice tight with both caution and excitement. The crew marked the entrance and sealed it for the night, knowing the next step could be the most dangerous yet. If the airflow was real, the space beyond could have been untouched for centuries, maybe even since the day it was sealed. Somewhere ahead, in that silent darkness, the next chapter of Oak Island's mystery was waiting, and whatever lay at the end of that tunnel had been waiting for them. The wind outside had risen, rattling the temporary covers the crew had placed over the vault entrance. Deep below, in the dim glow of work lights, Rick Lagina stood alone at the newly revealed archway, lantern in hand. The tunnel yawned before him, a silent invitation into a darkness no living soul had entered for centuries. He didn't step forward, not yet. Instead, he studied the black, feeling the weight of the moment. Somewhere beyond that narrow passage lay answers. Maybe the truth behind the legends, maybe the key to a secret that had crossed oceans and outlived empires. The crew above waited for his call. The camera lingered on Rick's face, the flicker of the lantern throwing shadows across the stone. Then slowly, he looked back over his shoulder. The narrator's voice cut through the rising sound of the wind. What lies beyond this tunnel could challenge everything we think we know about history. and prove that Oak Island's greatest secret has yet to be told. Next time, the journey continues, and trust us, you'll want to be here when it does. The screen faded to black. The faint sound of that whispering wind, the last thing to linger. Then, in bold letters, subscribe now, before the next chapter breaks.